What's going on, Jerome's? So Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins has really embedded himself in the culture and really became that guy that the Vikings had expected in 2018 free agency over the last couple of seasons. Kirko Chains was a beautiful thing. The Tim Pot Pizza Ranch dictator all of a sudden became the Dark Knight. Or I don't know. We're really just trying to shoehorn in these memes. Tramps like us, babe. I don't know. But Kirk definitely went frick around and find out mode over the last two seasons under Kevin O'Connell. And it's a spot where a lot of people are debating, did Kevin O'Connell make Kirk Cousins? Did Kirk make Kevin O'Connell? I think it's a little bit of both. But Kirk Cousins, fortunately, sadly popping that Achilles against the greasy, grimy Green Bay Packers and the gong show at quarterback since then. I mean, the Passionate had some great moments. Nick Mullins had some highs and lows against Cincinnati. Jaren Hall will always have that one drive against the Falcons, man. That's right, babe. But overall, I do think that it is very plausible that the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, who is going to be a free agent and also cannot be franchise tagged, will run it back in 2024. Will work out some sort of compromise. And you remember, last offseason, before the Vikings decided to just let it ride with Kirk, there had been talk about a one-year Band-Aid deal, which had been done in the first offseason of Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi before the 2022 season. But also Kirk and company wanted a multi-year deal. They decided to agree to disagree and revisit at the end of the season. And I think as of right now, I think Kirk is very likely to be back in 2024. I would almost put him at like a 85-90% favorite. But here are 10 reasons why Kirk will be back in 2024. Number one, Kirk gives the Vikings the best shot to win. And also, this plays into number two, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi's seat warmish. Now, I'm not saying fire Kevin O'Connell, but he does need to learn from his in-game and late-game play-calling mistakes. And Kwesi seems to be fine, but I do think that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell are overall a package deal. But, the NFL stands for not for long, and yes, they deserve a degree of leeway and scholarship for the 13-4 wanting some more and the division win in 2022. But, I mean, all bets could be off in 2024. And I think Kirk obviously gives the Vikings the best shot to win. And I actually think that the downside of Dobbs, especially in the end of the Broncos game, and the Bears game, and the Raiders game, as well as the sort of sweet and sour of Nick Mullins, I think that certainly made Kirk some money. And it's so weird. So Kirk Cousins may be the most polarizing player in Vikings franchise history, but even some of the Kirk haters and detractors, or even guys that were fans that were just middle of the road with him, are just like, man, I miss Kirk Cousins. Because you don't realize how well Kirk Cousins was playing until you don't have him. And that's a fact. And Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi adofo-mensah, remember, hitched their wagons to Kirk Cousins twice, before the 2022 season and before the 2023 season. And I think they'll do it again in 2024 because look around. Yes, you could draft a quarterback in the future, but that's a bit of a gamble. Free agency isn't going to give you anything. Jaren Hall is nice, but he'll be here. And I don't think that Mullins or Dobbs are the solution either. So Kirk is going to be back in all likelihood, even though cap situation gets a little dicey, especially if you look into extending Jefferson, finally, extending Neal, yes, as well as guys like Christian Darrisaw. Next up, number three, Kirk was playing at an MVP level, and he absolutely was. And when he popped his Achilles, he had been completing 69.5% of his passes. Nice, 2,331 yards, on pace for just south of 5K. Also was leading the league at the time in touchdown passes with 18. Only had 5 picks, although a couple of them weren't on him. Let's be honest here. And a 103.8 quarterback rating, which is good, which is really damn good. And you look as, they're just going to give the MVP to Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts. Did they see Jalen Hurts on Monday night? But I digress there. But yeah, Kirk Cousins, even at 35, even being Kirk Cousins, was, you have to admit, playing at a very high level. And yes, even though the Vikings did start out quite sluggish, wasn't necessarily all on him. Ball security issues was a main issue. But I mean, starting off at 1-4 and getting off the mat, and what Kirk had turned around, won 3 games in a row, including being the San Francisco 49ers, who right now are currently the best team in football. What could have been, man? Especially with that Florida's defense getting itself right. Man. you almost don't want to think about it because it just gets you bummed out. Next up, reason number 4, could reduce his free agency value with that injury. And Kirk is going to be 36. He's going to be coming off an Achilles injury, but also it might be a blessing that it happened early-ish in the season on the front half, where he should be able to be good to go for off-season work and training camp, etc. for next year. But him being 36 and him coming off a major surgery could reduce his free agency value, which it could help the Vikings because it could reduce his overall cost. Next up, number 5, free agent options could go for quarterback in the draft. So if you look around, who could use a quarterback next year? Pittsburgh? Possibly. Vegas? Yes. Washington? I mean, I like Sam Howell, but I don't know if they're completely sold. Also, it would be hilarious if he returned to Washington, even though, yes, different ownership, different regime, etc. But, yeah, Magic Johnson wants to make a splash. Bring back Kirk. And also, here's the thing. Sam Howell has his fans, he has his detractors, but if you got Commies fans before the start of the season in an honest moment, would they take Kirk Cousins back for the 2023 season? In a heartbeat, they would have. Atlanta, New Orleans, depending on what happens with Derek Carr, Tampa Bay. Baker's not the long-term solution there. And Seattle, although, hey, they did give Geno a 3-year deal. I don't know if he's the future. Drew Lock had one drive, man, but he looked really good against the Eagles at the end. But other than that, those teams certainly could go quarterback in the draft, could go a different direction. And do you necessarily see a team shelling out $40 million a year for a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles? Probably not. So I think that actually could help the Vikings in potentially reducing his free agency pool, as well as reducing his overall market value. Next up, number 6, JJ could demand it. So, as we pointed out a bunch, Justin Jefferson didn't break those records in the first 3 years of his career throwing the ball to himself. And he and Kirk, a lot of fans like to create fan fictions like, oh, there's friction between JJ and Kirk. Not the case. Absolutely not the case. And Jefferson, he understands that his stats and the Vikings winning and his legacy hinge on who's throwing him the football. And he's obviously not going to sign off on Josh Dobbs. Mullins is a backup. Jared Hall's unknown, and rookie TBD would be unknown. So I think that JJ could see Kirk, and also you see how much the locker room freaking loves Kirk, man. I think that that could be not explicit saying that, hey, I'm not going to sign my extension until Kirk Cousins signs here, but it could be implied. And I think that's something that could push the Vikings to not only bring back Kirk, for all the reasons why it makes sense, because it does give them the best chance to win. But making JJ get his deal done here, keeping him long-term, could make sense. Next up, number 7, Tier 1 weapons, a solid offensive line, and elite D. Now, the offensive line has been hot and cold at times recently, but you got Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the game. Jordan Addison, the best rookie wide receiver in the game. Together, they're the best wide receiver duo in the league. Hawkinson is a top 2 tight end, and he might not be 2. And with Darisaw in place, you have your left tackle. O'Neal, hopefully will get better. Kind of stank the last couple games before the ankle, but he should be fine. But and also on the other side of the ball, especially if Brian Flores stays for another year, that defense is going to be elite. And again, what sucks is the Vikings were figuring things out at the beginning of the season, especially on defense, especially with ball security. And it really was just a symphony of errors which conspired against the Vikings. Again, shoulda, coulda, woulda beat the Bucs and the Eagles and the Chargers and the Chiefs, etc. And now everything is clicking. The offensive line got together. The weapons are looking good. JJ is back. The defense is looking tier 1, except for the last quarter and overtime against the Bengals. But imagine all this coming together at once. Again, super frustrating, man. But Kirk will be walking back into that situation with a head coach and Kevin O'Connell and play caller that he clearly has chemistry with. So next up, number 8, Kirk and Julie root in the community. And Kirk Cousins does have this reputation of just taking every single nickel possible. But also remember that when he had options, right? So Kirk was drafted by Washington. That's where he played. That's where he got franchise tagged twice. He didn't really have any choice of where to go. But when he was a free agent in 2018, where he and his wife and his family could choose where they wanted to go, they were offered more money with the Jets. $90 million guaranteed versus $84 million guaranteed here with the Vikings. But so they turned down $6 million. Now that's sort of that could be a wash in terms of not state income taxes, but overall taxes and cost of living, etc. That could be a wash between the New York, New Jersey area and the great state of Minnesota. But also, you just think about it, it's like they're Midwesterners at heart. They like Midwestern values, and they seem very comfortable in Minnesota and comfortable in the community. So I actually think that that's a huge advantage for the Vikings. And, I mean, what would happen? Say Atlanta offers Kirk Cousins like $1 million more per year than the Vikings. Do you think that they'll make a difference? What about 4? What about 6? Actually, 6 might do it again if it's a one-year deal. Who knows, man? Next up, number 9, unfinished business. And, Kirk has to see that this is his best shot to win a Super Bowl. Actually, that plays into number 10. So unfinished business here with the Vikings. I mean, Kirk having his first serious injury of his football career, doesn't want to go out like that. And he is now beloved here in the state of Minnesota. And also, I think his injury definitely softened a lot of people's stances on him. They appreciate him a lot more. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? All right, and I think, especially with the Vikings seeing the bad side of Dobbs, the sort of whatever with Mullins, they're like, oh, Kirk could come back, and it is his best chance to win a Super Bowl. And you know that Kirk Cousins is very much into legacy, especially at this point of his career. And if he's going to play, 2, 3, 4 more seasons here with the Vikings, with Kevin O'Connell, with Justin Jefferson, with Addison and Hockenson and Darisaw in that defense, it's going to be his best possible shot to win a Super Bowl. All right, so as opposed to starting over in a new market, starting over with the Steelers, starting over with the Raiders, starting over with Atlanta, ain't gonna happen. Don't see it happening. So I do think that the Tim Pod Pizza Ranch dictator will indeed be back in power, but we'll see. Anyways, your thoughts are thoughts. Why Kirk will be back in 2024? Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Once worth the work, put a little something in the Venmo. But next time, Skull Production Value.